Now at this point in the process, this is where things get interesting, because you'll notice that there's very little shank left above the board, and there's still some thread caught in the bottom. And what I've noticed is that if you try to back this out, you will louse up the threads. So I sort of had to figure out a way to do this, because finding long taps that will actually fit all the way through is difficult and expensive. And I think they're called aircraft taps, but I don't have any. So what I've done is come up with, some people might call it a little half-ass, but a solution. I'm going to get this top of the bit as low down in the hole as I can go, and then what I've got to do is remove this, and get sort of a technique I came up out of desperation, but it works, even though it's a bit of a pain in the butt, because there's really no other way to do this as far as these size taps. And it's a 1/2 inch tap, so it's a pretty hefty piece of metal. Alright, so I got that off. Gave me a little bit of a wrestling match, and you might have to play with it for a little bit. Maybe give it a few taps very gently with the side of the wrench. This is what I have to use, very, very gently. And make sure that if you have to pry that socket off, you use something to protect your work, because you really don't want to mar this up. That would make a big mess. So you want to get that going, and then what you're going to do, what I've found, the only way to get this far enough along for the next step is to put that socket back on just a little bit, just enough that you're not going to strip it, you're not going to go all the way down with it, and you're going to be able to turn it a couple more turns, and that's going to get that head of that just almost down into the wood. Alright, now this is as low as I can get it in the hole. A lot of the thread is out the bottom, which is what you want. And if this was in metal, this would be impossible, what I'm going to do. But in wood, I've already bored out all the threads. There's just a little bit left, but it's enough to hold this pretty tight. So what I have to do is somehow figure out a way to turn this in the hole. And this isn't really much different than some kind of like a band clamp. The threads will catch quite well on a soft material, and I don't want to wreck my threads, I don't want to wreck my piece. If I wind a work glove around the threads in the right direction and turn, it'll come out. Alright, so now I've got this wrapped around there, and I figured this out just by accident. Had to add a way to turn this in the hole. It's not going to damage the threads, and I know some mechanics would probably cringe at this. And maybe in a softer wood, you could just grab it with a gloved hand and just gently turn it. But I don't want to wreck my thread. It's not an expensive thread. But as you notice, if I do this right, it works. Simple solution, doesn't cost anything for a simple problem. And I just turn it. And if I do this, it'll just come right out. And a few turns later, there we are. Tap is undamaged. Got some good threading in there. I'll clean up the top of that hole. All the bolt will really do the work for me. And it's a lot of this. It's time consuming. It's not quick. You got to go slow. Take your time. But that's how it works. Alright, and then to hold everything together, I got a carriage bolt here. It's different than the hex bolt that I already have in, but I have to take them out anyway later on to put it in. I have to make another run to the store to get more hex bolts. But as you can see, she goes in just by hand, and you just go gentle. I don't have any wax or Vaseline or anything like that. And you might have to use a wrench a little bit, but for the most part, and once it gets in there far enough, there'll be no slop. That's not going anywhere. And I use this as a handle when I'm working it in the router table.